Alrighty, getting this party started. Just posted an announcement in the Discord. Can you hear me? I don't know. Are my headphones working? Let's see. Looks like the headphones are working. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's try this. Make sure that audio is working. Testing. Make sure that audio is working. There we go. It is working. Okay. Just checking the Discord real quick while we wait for people to join. Um, there goes the train. Got the window open to keep myself cool, so it's probably a little louder than normal. And we can bring this over here. Just going through the different mentions I have on Discord. Had work today, so got dinner and a shower, and now I'm jumping on Discord to see what's going on. That train is a loud one. Oh, I see. I've got two windows of Safari open. Hello, Sinister. How's it going? If we go back to the right desktop, there we go. We got two spaces there. That's good. Just getting started here. Just checking my Discord mentions. Oh, bother. Okay, so that was just helpers. Oh boy. Only 9 more to 7,500. Trying to make a website? What are you using to build it? Yeah, I'd love to see it. Alrighty, we can send this back over there. Oh, that wasn't what I meant to do. Why did that not copy? Oh, very fancy. What'd you use to make this? Very neat. Ah, I see. Hey, that's going to be a big project. Lots to do there. You'll probably want to make each of these commands a function in your JavaScript. That'll make your life a lot simpler. Aha, there we go. This is very clever. So like you're probably going to have like an object that's going to be your file system. Probably, and it's going to have like a list of folders, a list of files. And then when you pass like a path to cat, it'll grab that file system object. And I'll grab the correct file or folder depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to assume this about me.txt isn't actually just plain text because you have hyperlinks in there. So it's probably actually an HTML file, and he's just for the looks of the website, for the aesthetic reasons, calling it txt. Like, this is a really good site. It's a really fun site. It's quite interesting. Ooh, and he has autocomplete. That's very cool. Let's see, they got stuff on their GitHub. Interesting. It's too bad they don't link to this. Let's go here. It's neat that they have all of their... Oh, they're using Next.js. That's interesting. It's neat that they have all of their code right here on their GitHub. I don't really mess with JavaScript stuff too much. Looks like they're using TypeScript. Date, layout. All your crazy JSX stuff. Because it's using TSX, so it's TSX, not really JSX. Yeah, pretty neat. That's pretty nifty. Yeah, that's an interesting project. Like, what were you thinking of using to build that? Were you going to use like Python with FastAPI or something similar to that? Flask. Flask is a good one. Like, Flask has a few weird little hangups. Like, I think, personally, I don't like Flask, just because of how it functions, how it works. It does a lot of magical things in the background to try to make the the developer experience to try and make it a little bit smarter, a little bit cleaner. But sometimes you'll bump right into what they're doing and things won't make as much sense as you might like. I've kind of bumped into similar things with FastAPI with the depends, how they do their dependencies with the depends method, class, object, whatever it is. I haven't even looked at that code yet. Because like it only works in some places, and in other places you have to do something different to get it to work. And Flask has the same issues. I bumped into it less with FastAPI, and it's not as big of an issue for me with FastAPI, but it's there. I kind of wish that they would settle for a slightly less magical experience and just create a system that works the same everywhere. Make it more Python native, more Python. In my sense, that would make it more Pythonic. But it is what it is. There's only so much you can do. You only have so much power when writing code and when you're developing libraries like that. So it's never going to be perfect. You got to do the best you can. I like FastAPI is really nice. Flask is, for what it does, it's good. It's good for what it does. It's a really nice basic library for building websites, for getting your routes right and all that. So it's a good package. You'll probably want to look into what was it called? Blueprints. So this way you can spread out your endpoints and your functions across multiple files, rather than having everything in the same file as your app variable. That's the one thing I would suggest looking into, because otherwise you're gonna get a mess of a file with everything in it, which is not fun, which is not pretty. All right, I'd suggest using. All right, just scrolling through here, figuring out where we're at, helping people out on the Discord. Alrighty. Yeah, where were we at with this? I don't remember. This is what we can do. We can jump over here. Let's see what our last commit was. We got basic auth working. Yeah, it's literally just the basic auth working. Like, if we were to run this. That's from the other day. Poetry run python-mbit. And then we go over to docs. List all bits. This one's authenticated, so we have to authorize. We have to get a token. This is what I want. There we go. There's our access token. Good lord. Can't see my access token. And then we should be able to come up here. Authorize, close, and then I should be able to do this, try it out, execute. And there we go. So that worked. So what do we need to do? We need to add the ability for a user to register, something like that. I'm trying to think here. What do we need the user to be able to do? Because I've got the models, and then if I come over to the site file, you see all my routes. So I've got my JWT. Did I have a file for this stuff? No, I don't. So let me move all of that to a file. Auth. Yeah, that got put right here. And then we're going to come over to site, and we're going to grab this. And did I set up any kind of config with this? I feel like I set up some kind of config, but I don't remember. I think if I look over at the Alembic files, I'll see what I'm looking for. I think I have it all in there. So then we take all of this, move it over here. We have to come up here. From time, import time. Oh, no, we have to import time straight up. There we go. Just time. And then from, we need to import JWT. From FastAPI, import HTTP, nope. Import request. We're gonna have to figure out where some of this stuff came from. Need to import that. And depends. And then from FastAPI, hit the right buttons, import HTTP bearer, HTTP authorization credentials. There we go. Now this I would like to pull in from a config file. And I think if I come over, is this where I want to be? Trying to see bit models base. I don't think I hard coded anything here. So if I come back over here to base, declarative base. Could have swore I had some kind of config. Interesting. Where am I defining? Gotta import that. Let me get rid of all these extra imports. There we go. And then sign Jada. All right, cool. So we got those imports correct. I want to try and figure out how I want to move these. Must have been the other project that I got config working. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing how I control Alembic. It's right here. Right? We haven't created the database on this computer. I thought we did. Did I delete it? I must have deleted it. Doesn't really matter. So that's where that's coming in. I'm not a huge fan of that. Like I could make this be generated with sed, but I don't really want to do that. For now, it's all right, but like the problem is on my computer, it's going to use SQLite. And it's going to use this database.db file, right? And then when I put it on the web server and I make it a public website, I want to use my Postgres server. So this is going to be a URL to my Postgres server. And so the question then becomes, how do I change that when I'm on my local computer, on my personal computer, and how do I change it when I'm on the server without having to have all these, a different file for each one? Like, I'll probably end up needing some kind of file for each one. It's not ideal. I guess I could come in here and I could come down here. Where is it? Configure. Because like here we're doing SQLalchemy.url. So if we go back over here, we see this is SQLalchemy.url, this value. So right here, it's loading in the URL and it's passing it into the context that it creates. In context.config from Alembic import context.config. And then it configures it. So I could come into this file, I'm pretty sure, and modify how it behaves. I'm like looking to see if there's already a mechanism built into this, but I'm not seeing one. Engine from config. Let me go back over here. Yeah, so that's not coming from here. Interesting. Like, because what I'm looking at here is they've got run migrations offline. And then run them online. Alright, so looking at the comments here, the run online means that like you're creating a connection to a database. This one, you're not really needing to create a connection to a database. I'm not totally sure what the difference is there. Just trying to understand what this is doing exactly. Engine from config. Yeah, that's just pulling the URL as well. Because it's using this prefix SQL alchemy dot, and then grabbing all of those keys, and then it's using URL from that. So it's all pulling from the same spot. So if I wanted to have my own custom, like if I wanted to have a different parameter in the file for local and production, I either have to come up with a way to generate the file on the fly, which you can do using SED command said. Yeah, so there's that. I actually used that in one of my projects. So if we do projects, and then GitHub workflows, workflow YAML. If I scroll down here, let's see where it is. It's this file actually. Wait, no, it's not this file. Which file is it? It's the Docker file. There it is. We're using SED. And we're searching for, what are we searching for? We're searching for this right here, I believe. So then if we go over to the Docker file, right? Is that what we're looking at here? The bot YAML manifest. So then if I do get the bot manifest, bot.yaml. So then if we scroll on, like, you see right here it is, here it is. So you have the image version. So what that file there is doing, what this line right here is doing, where it's telling it run tag equals GitHub SHA, head C7, so it's grabbing the first 7 characters of the GitHub SHA, I believe. That's just the commit SHA key, the SHA hash for the git commit. So it's grabbing the first 7 characters from it and putting it into the GitHub SHA environment variable. And then here we're using sed to look for this right here inside our file, this file right here. And then we're going to replace it with $ curly's tag, which is just telling it to grab this environment variable we just created. So it's replacing this with the first 7 digits of the GitHub SHA inside our bot.yaml. And so that's just how I'm versioning the bot. So this way, because like if you see, like if we go up, was it up here? Yeah, right here, where we're doing the Docker push, we're grabbing the first 7 of the GitHub SHA, and then up here we're doing the Docker build, we're using the first 7 of the GitHub SHA. And so like all of that stuff is being stored on Docker Hub, and it's being versioned using the first 7 characters of the GitHub SHA hash. And then, so I need to inject that into my manifest, because if this down here where it's at, it's telling it to use that image that we just pushed to the Docker Hub. And so we have to know what version just got pushed to the Docker Hub. So I have to use sed to modify this file so that this file can be used for every version of the bot, and always use the latest version of the bot. And the reason why I don't want to use FastAPI DippyBot latest is because that can get messy. Like maybe I push a version of the bot that I decide not to use, so I want to go back to a previous version. If I'm constantly using latest, it might pull down the latest version, which is broken. Or that I don't want to be using for one reason or another. Maybe I'm pushing out a change and I don't want it to go public just yet. I got to do something else. Maybe I need to update the database before I push out the change. If the Kubernetes cluster restarts my pod, I don't want it grabbing that newest image. So I pin the image version that's being used using that GitHub commit hash to uniquely identify every version of the bot. And so that's why I'm doing that. And so like you could do something similar here where you are modifying this alembic.ini, and you would just replace this with some indication DB connection URL, and then you tell sed to look for that and replace it with the appropriate DB connection URL based on where you're at. It's not my favorite solution. It works. It's something that functions. It does the job. It's not my favorite thing to do. I would much rather be able to have a config file that has my local environment that doesn't get pushed to GitHub. And then I create a separate one. And then when I have my Docker file, I just tell it to use the other file that's got the separate values. And I think you can see that. We come back here. Let's see, do I have that? Boom, boom, boom. It's like I have bot YAML and I have bot dev YAML. And I have development YAML, yeah. So these are all, these two right here, bot.yaml and development.yaml, they are the config files for our Discord bot. And I don't think I can safely show either of those. I think they both have tokens in them. Or the development one definitely has a token in it. I can't remember if the bot.yaml has a token in it or not. It shouldn't. That should be in my environment variables, stored securely in my Kubernetes secrets. But those two files are very similar. And the way I actually have that bot set up, it will load bot.yaml, and then it will load development.yaml if it's not on the Kubernetes cluster. And so this way, you get all the values from the bot.yaml, and then you get any changed values inside the development.yaml. So this way you don't have to have all the same settings in two different files. You just include the different files together. And like that's my preferred approach to it. I'm trying to see if there was like a way just to do this in multiple environments, but it doesn't look like there are, which is a bummer. It does look like it has black settings. So I could have it black format these files. The only reason I would want to do that is if I had a commit hook that checked to make sure all the files were formatted using black. And if they weren't, it would fail the commit or the push. So I might need to have all of this black formatted just to get stuff pushed into GitHub. All right, so I'm not going to worry about all that for right now. I need to figure out how I'm doing config, because I want to move this and this to a config file. I've already got Pydantic, so let's see. Pydantic, use environment variables, settings management. Let's just see. Okay, so he has a base settings. Make that a little bit larger. He has a base settings model. It's a base model that you can use to define settings, like a settings model. You set up your own settings model, and then you can set the environment variable that it should be populated with if it exists. So you can set a default, and then you can have an environment value. So what we can do is we can use this. Let's see. What is going on here with the config? Okay, so you can set an environment prefix. Defaults to no prefix. And then you can set a bunch of them here, or you can set them on here using the my API key. Try to just see if there's a reason why. You might want to use the config section rather than just set it on a field. Did he explain that up here? No, it doesn't seem to explain it up there. Huh. So yeah, that makes config a little bit simpler. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a config file. A file for managing config files. There we go. This is going to return base settings. Base settings. We need to import field. And then I wanted to come back over here because I want to get this and this. Field secret I think actually I don't even need to set the field. I just need to set it to secret like that. And then we set this like that, and then we do class config. And this will configure our model. Because he uses a config class to store properties. Pydantic uses a config class, a subclass of the model class. It's not a subclass, it's a... Oh, I'm trying to think of the word. It's an encapsulated class. It's like inside of the other class. There's a name for it, and I can't think of what it is. So we're going to set m prefix. So this, it's basically going to tell this settings model. It's going to configure this settings model to prefix all of the environment variables for this model with this prefix. Bit, there we go. We're going to do that. That is going to be our prefix. So now all of these will have a environment variable, bit underscore JWT underscore secret, or bit underscore JWT underscore algorithm. And that should, in theory, function the way we want it to. Open config, it's going to return a path, but I don't want to do that right now. I just want to test something real quick. If we do, this is config. We're going to edit environment variables. I'm going to add bit JWT secret equals foo bar, right like that. Apply. And then if I do close, do that. I just want to test this out. Right like that. And then if I run that, it prints out foo bar. Secret is foo bar. And that was set inside of my config's environment. We could change that to Bob and run. The secret is Bob. So I'm changing the value of that environment variable, and it's changing the value of the settings. So now all I have to do is import that settings model, instantiate it with the fields from a config file, and if there's no value in the config file, it'll check the environment. If it's not in the environment, it will check the default. So then the next step becomes with path.open. Yeah, we're just reading as file. Return settings, and we're going to pass in dot from ORM, config from namespace, exclude from namespace. Think we're going to go ahead and give this a try. We're going to do, we need to import JSON. We're just going to make it a simple JSON config file. Dot load file. And what's it complaining about? Oh, it's not going to tell me I'm not supposed to return a path. I'm supposed to return settings. Right like that. Now let's just test this out. We're gonna do open config path file parent. So this gets the folder that this config.py file is in. Then it gets the parent folder, and then we're going to do /settings.json, right like that. And we're going to do print right like that. And I'm going to do, so if we're currently in config, we're going to bit. I don't actually want it to be inside the bit folder. I want it to be in the folder above the bit folder, inside the other bit folder. But at the root of our project. So this gets the root of our project. So we're going to do command N, file, settings.json, and then we're going to do JWT algorithm. RS256. And then I'm gonna, it should, in theory. Oh, we did go on too far. It was correct. Never mind. There we go. So there we go. Now we see when I print out this settings, or the open, all right, so what we're gonna do, let me do it like this. Make it a little bit easier to see what we're doing. Settings equals config path. So there we have our config path. It's going to be this file's parent folder. The folder that's the parent of this one, whatever. So it's going to be the root folder of our project. And then it's going to be settings.json. And the settings are going to be, we're going to do open config. And then we give it the config path. And then we're going to print out the settings. And it's going to print out JWT secret Bob, JWT algorithm RS256. You see our default, the secret is secret, and the algorithm is HS256. So we set the, in the environment, we set the JWT secret to Bob, which we see in the return value, the printout. And then inside our config file, we set the JWT algorithm to RS256, which is what we see in the printout. So we're seeing none of the defaults got used. It pulled in values from a config file, and it pulled in values from the environment, which is exactly what we want. Like I think if we do this secret, we're gonna call it, it's gonna be Tom, and then if we run it, oops, gotta configure thing right. Yeah, so everything in the config file will overwrite anything in the environment. So that's like one little bit of a trade-off. I think that makes sense to do it that way because I would expect anything in my config file to be what I'm using, whatever I can see there. The environment may have values, like maybe you want to run your bot, a second instance of your bot to test something, but you want to use some different values. So you would give it a config file that has the different values, and then the main instance of the bot would be running, and it'll be pulling stuff from the environment or your website, whatever it is. Like you can have two instances running, one that you're messing around with doing dev stuff with, and it's pulling stuff from your config file. And then the other one, which is your production one, would be running, pulling stuff from the environment. So that makes sense to me. That's how I would expect things to work. Your environment is secondary. What's in the config file is what is being used for certain. If you see it in your config file, that is the value being used. That's pretty cool. So we got this working. Now we have settings that we're able to pull from a config file. Now, one thing I am curious about, .json, please take me to that file. If I set something like this, explode. Will it? I think it will. I think this will cause it to explode. It did something. It did something, that's for sure. Oh, that's right. You didn't tell it to do anything. It explodes. Fields not permitted. Now, so then that becomes a question of how do we update it to ignore extra fields? Extra equals extra forbid. And I like this idea of using allow. So what we have to do is we come up here and we got to import extra. That's just an enum. And then we do extra equals extra dot allow. So what that'll do is it'll let it run. What does that mean? Oh, I see. It's saying specifying config in two places is ambiguous. What that's referring to is this right here. So apparently I should be able to do extra equals extra dot allow, right, like that. Aha, there it goes. And so like, see now, it found the values we have here, okay? So it found this JWT secret, the JWT algorithm. And then it saw the explode in the config file and it set it on the model. Now, if I were to change that to ignore, you'll see that third one that isn't in our model, but is in our config file, went away. So it's all about how do you want the values to work. I want everything to show up. So everything is there. It will assume it's whatever value is in the config file. So like if we were to make this a number, right, like that, you see that has quotes around it because it's a string. So if I make it a number, it'll show up as a number. So I can actually treat it like the data type that it is. So yeah. Oh, I see. JSON is annoying. All right, cool. There we go. And there we go. We're pulling from the environment again. We're pulling from the config file. Very cool. Very cool. So now we've got a very nice, very handy, very powerful config. And we didn't have to do a whole lot to make it work. And that's like the power of using a framework like Pydantic. It gives you a lot of control and it's very simple and straightforward to use. There's a lot of stuff to know. There's a little bit of a learning curve because you have to learn how it functions. Like, I knew the base settings existed because I've messed with Pydantic before. I've done a lot of research about it. I've heard a lot about it. I've learned a lot about it just in like the reading and listening to podcasts and YouTube videos that I do. But if you're new to Pydantic, you're probably not going to know about that. And so you're not going to know you have that much power that you can just do such really interesting things. And actually, I'm curious, does this have like just everything right here? Or I'm just curious how exactly. So yeah, like literally all the logic is right there inside of that model. And then he's using this prepare field method, which gets called when it's trying to determine what values to give to a field. What information should be set on a field. So there's a lot of stuff going on in here. Very fancy stuff. And then all that crazy code. So we can go back over here. It's like all this crazy code right here. Kind of scary looking code. Well, that's interesting. Secrets, settings, source. That piques my interest because I like to mess with secrets. Because you want to keep your stuff secure and you want to keep it secret. So if Pydantic supports secrets, that might be something I'm interested in. But yeah, so all that crazy code allows us to grab the value for these fields right here from our environment. Or we can pass in values when we instantiate the settings object by just loading the file and sending it in. Now we can do one more thing. I think it's functools. Import cache. All right. And I'm going to put cache on here. All right. And then we can do open config. Path equals path file. Gotta get this back in here. Parent slash settings.json. And then I just want to do, I'm just going to show something here. Open config path. And then I'm going to add a print right in here. Print loading file. All right. So we're going to pass in path. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it a second time with the exact same path. And you can see it only prints loading file once. And like if we print out the data in here, it prints it out both times. So I'm using the cache to save whatever we return from the open config. Now, if I were to do something silly like this and add another thing to that, it's going to explode, and you're going to see it prints out loading file twice. So the cache only caches for whatever arguments you pass into the function. So the first time you open a file, it'll run it. The second time you try to open the same file, it won't run it. It'll just return what it gave last time. But then if you try to open a different file, it'll attempt to open, it'll open it. So you can have any number of config files be cached, and the function will only run once for any given config file. Pretty handy. And that makes your code more efficient. You can use that for a lot of things. It makes your code way more efficient because you're not having to rerun the same code every time that's going to return the exact same value every single time. All right, so now let me commit this config file. Add config file support. And then what do we do next? Actually, you know what we might do? I'm going to do this. Paths or path in paths settings equals, we're going to make that a dictionary. We're going to open it. And then we're going to do settings right like that. And then down here, we're going to return settings. All right, so what this allows me to do now is we can come over here and we can do .dev So we have a settings.dev, and I'm going to do dev root, right like that. And then we're going to close that, and we're going to come up here. And we're going to do dev bool false, right like that. Now, root equals path, just to test this out, file dot parent, right like that. And then I'm going to do settings equals open config, right like that. And then we're going to do root slash settings.json. And then I'm going to do root slash settings.dev.json. And then we're going to print out settings. And we can see it loaded Bob from the environment. It loaded the JWT algorithm from settings.json right here. So it's RS256. So it loaded that from settings.json. And then it loaded dev equals true from here. And that's because I passed in two different files in our root directory that can then be, that are then all joined together into one settings dictionary, which is then passed to the settings model. So now we can have multiple files. Let's get rid of that print statement. We don't need that there. So now we can have multiple files that we're loading and we're passing into our settings model, which is handy because then maybe like if we're, because like maybe I want to commit all of my settings for the server, for the production server, the one that is going to be public and available to everyone to access. But I don't want to put all the settings in there. Hey, Arian, how's it going? So, like, I don't want to put all the settings inside my production settings file, right? Because, like, I don't want to have I don't want to have my secret in there. I don't want to have my JWT secret inside my settings file. That's going to be in the environment where nobody can see it. But then when I'm on my personal computer, I do want to have it inside of the config file. I want it inside of my settings.dev config file. And so what I'm gonna do one more thing here. Except file not found error. I think that, and then we're gonna pass. So what that does right there is it's going to ignore any files that aren't found. So then if I come back over here and I do the root equals path file dot parent dot parent, and then we do settings equals open config, and then we do root slash settings settings dot json, and then we do root slash settings dot dev dot json, like that, and then we print out settings and we run that. So everything's the same as it was before, right? Then I come over here and I get rid of this settings.json, right like that. It should still work. And there we go. But now dev switched to false because that settings file wasn't there. So now we can have one line in code that says open config, right? And it'll have our settings.json, and we can have our settings.dev.json. And the settings.json is all the same settings that we would be using in our production environment. And then our settings.dev.json will be any of the settings we need changed for our development environment on our personal computer, right? So I can put my JWT secret in there. I can put my JW algorithm in there. I can put all of my stuff in there because it's going to be on my machine. And then what I can do is I can come over here. We can come over here Let's get rid of all of this. We don't need this right now. I don't need to cat that file out again. I can do, let's recreate that file I just deleted. Settings.dev.json. And then I can do, let's do echo settings.dev.json into .getIgnore. So that'll add that to our getIgnore. No, I don't want the directory. No, I don't want the directory. There we go. I want that file. So like we've added the settings.dev.json into there. So then when I come over here, you see I see my settings.json file, but I don't see my settings.dev.json. So now I can put anything I don't want anybody to see, but that I need to run the website on my computer into that settings.dev.json file, and it will never go out to the public internet. It'll never go up to my public repo that anybody can read. Nobody will be able to steal my secrets from my config file, because I'm never going to send it there because it's in my getIgnore. So like that's the power. Like we've got just a few little lines here. Idantic has made it easy for me to do all kinds of fancy stuff with my config file. And all I have to think about is how do I load the values from the config files? That's all I have to think about. How do I read the config files, load them into my settings, and then pass that into my settings model? It's very handy. It's very fast. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. And then I can add more settings to my config model just by adding new properties and attributes to this settings model class. It's very cool. It's very awesome. It's very handy. All right. So let's come back over here and let's do this and config. Support multiple config files. Commit. And then ignore. No. I'm hitting all the wrong buttons. My keyboard got shifted over. Ignore all or the dev config. There we go. Commit. All right, so there we got that. Now let me see if we got. Oh, now we need to come back over here to auth.py. All right, so then we go over here to auth.py, and we're gonna do from bit.config import openconfig, and then I'm gonna do config equals openconfig. I'm trying to think here. How do I want to make this so that I don't have to write out all that path code? So let's jump back into here. And what we're going to do is we're going to break this out into a couple functions. We're going to have def load settings paths. Be a path, and this is going to return a dict. So that's all this is going to do, is this right here. Return settings. All right. And then we're going to have the settings equals load settings paths. Paths equals get default paths. If we're going to do paths if paths. So if we have paths, we're going to use the paths. Otherwise, we're going to get default paths. Def get default. Even better idea. Even better idea. Oh no, we'll use a this is what we'll do. We're going to use a global default paths. And then this is going to be project root path under file parent dot parent. All right, and then we do project root slash settings dot json and project root slash settings dot dev dot json. Is that what I want to do? Is this how I want to do this? I do think I want to do that as a function. The reason why I want to do that as a function is because I want to be able to load. Right? Yes, no, maybe. No. This makes sense. This works right here. Because the way it's going to ignore... I'm trying to make sure it ignores the settings.dev.json on the server. Which it will do, because on the server we will never have that file. So it'll automatically know it's not on the... It'll just never load it because it doesn't exist. Which is why we have to try accept. So then we're going to do default paths. And there's a shorter way we can do this. We can do paths or default paths. Then we pass in paths to load settings. Oh, I see why. We gotta explode that into it. All right, so now we have open config. And now open config, if there are no paths provided, we'll use whatever the default paths are, which is going to be settings.json and settings.dev.json. And then this returns a dict, and there we go. So now this is nice and neat, all nice and clean for us. We can actually simplify this a little bit more, right? Like this. Boom. And then if we come over here, config, open config. So all we have to do is config equals open config. I'm going to change this. We're going to call this load config. It's not actually opening the config, it's loading it completely. All right, so there we have that. I'm just going to commit that change. Rename to load config. And then add default config paths. So then we can come over here. Now we have the config. And now we can do config.jwt secret, config.jwt algorithm, config.jwt algorithm, config.jwt secret. All right, awesome. Now that allows us to, that is Tower. That is a paid piece of software that's, wait, no, it is on Windows, but it costs me $60 a year. So it isn't necessarily something I recommend to anybody just because it is expensive. But if you can afford $60 a year and you like to have a Git client that is really easy and really handy to use, I'd highly recommend Tower. Like you see, I can literally select a line and then stage that individual line and commit just one line from a file. It's something else. It's really crazy what you can do with it. And like if you make a commit and then realize you forgot to add something to commit, it'll show you the option to amend the previous commit, which is really cool. And like if you come over here, you can see like it shows that my commits are all signed. It has a little green dot next to each one, so you know that that commit was created by me. You can check my PGP key, which is published, to verify that that commit came from me. So not someone who set the same email address as me and all that. Yeah, it's much easier. It's much simpler in a lot of ways. There are some things you can't do from the GitHub client, or that you can't do as easily. But there's a ton that you can do a lot easier with it. So it's a trade-off. I still use the CLI a lot. Like sometimes it's just easier to jump in here and type it out real quick. But yeah, I use both interchangeably pretty much. All right. So now we've got this working. Now let's go over to site and make sure everything here is set up correctly. Alrighty. So then if I come back over here and I do poetry run mbit, does it explode? It explodes! Oh, I know why. I know why it explodes. So let's do this. Do we want to do that? Maybe we don't. And we won't worry about that. We will just go in and set this. And then if we come over here and we run it, it'll work. Yay! And then if I come back over here and go here, let's scroll up to the top. Let's get rid of all of this mess so it doesn't. And there we go. So it's working. It's working. Just because I don't want more going on inside of PyCharm. Like, this is the most I want to see in one window. I don't need more stuff open in here. Like this way, because like if I were to have the terminal in PyCharm, I would have to have it like on the side, and I could make this big full screen. Like I've got a 32-inch monitor. This is a large monitor. I can fit a lot more on the screen. I could make PyCharm full screen and have everything in PyCharm. But then like if I want to jump out to the docs and then jump back over here, I can't look over and reference it because I'll have PyCharm in the way. I could put that on my second monitor, but I've got like all kinds of other stuff already on the second monitor. So it's like I'm gonna need I need a third monitor at this point. Like let's not joke around here. I definitely do. But that's the main reason. It's just so much easier. And then like if I were to bring up the terminal, like let's see. If I go to window, is it here? View mode, move to no. Editor tabs, notifications. Where is the window? View, tool windows. If I pull up, and like I so rarely use the terminal in here. Like they have a Git client. It's not bad. Like it does some stuff. Like you don't have to necessarily buy one, but like because like PyCharm has one built in that lets you do most everything you need to. I don't ever use that. Of course, I pay $60 a year, so I have a motivation to not use that. And then there's a MyPy terminal. Here it is, terminal. They have a terminal here. Like it looks good. It works pretty well, but like I said, it would end up blocking my view of like anything else I want to have off to the side here, which is why I don't do that. Like PyCharm gets 2/3 of the screen, and that's about all. And then I have 1/3 of my screen that I can put anything I need to in. If I need to look at the docs, I can have the docs up over here. I can pop them over to be 1/3, and like I can just jump back and forth, see what I'm doing, read it as I'm coding. And I can have all kinds of other crazy stuff on my other monitor. But yeah, so yeah, that's why I don't do it. It's just it makes it easier for me to control what is on this third of the screen. And like I know like if you mess with, I think it's like WebStorm, I think they have like a built-in browser window into WebStorm, which is like the web version of PyCharm. It's like, it seems a bit excessive to me. There's gotta be a way, there's gotta be like a hotkey, like I can do... what was it? Control F12. What was it? Command F12. That brings up something. Yeah. So like on here, like the terminal would be. I can switch between stuff with F keys. Or is that right? I don't even know at this point. But yeah. 2. No, command 1. Oh, that's super weird. But yeah, like I can switch between stuff using command and then keys, and then if I do F12, right? Was it F12 or was it command F12 or was it? I don't even know at this point. What is it doing? I don't know. It's supposed to be able to switch between stuff using hotkeys, and I'm pretty sure the shortcut keys in VS Code should let you switch. But I'm not sure. And yeah, that's another reason. I'm just used to like command tabbing between my windows. I can jump between all my windows with command tab. I can see a preview if I hold command and then press tab, like, so I can jump between stuff a little bit easier. I can jump between windows using command and backtick of the same type, but I don't know. I just find it a lot easier to use a normal terminal window. And then, like, the other thing is, like, I can just jump into multiple tabs on my terminal window, but I can't do that. I don't think that you can do that in here. If I go to view, tool windows, like, there's probably a hotkey for it. It's Alt F12. Okay, that's why I couldn't get it to work. But if I do, yeah, I can create tabs in here, so I could do it in here, pretty much everything I need to. Like you see over here, like look at this, look at this. Close this. I've got my nice little thingy over here, nice and neat. But then if you look, I don't know if you can see this in the YouTube stream, it's there, but like, it's a different color than the background. I could fix that. I can go into my settings and change the background color for my PyCharm terminal. I don't know if I'm a fan of that, though. Don't know why it can't just work the way it is. It works in my other terminal fine, so I don't know. But whatever. Alright, so where were we? Alright, so we got this working. We can get rid of these. We can get rid of all that. So now we have config working. We have a config system working. We go back over here. Let's make sure we have that working. Let's switch this over. So we can move all of the auth to its own file. Move auth logic to its own file. Right like that. We can delete these. We don't need those anymore. Let's go over to that settings file. I don't need anything in there right now. Add settings file. Oh, there was no new line. Add missing new line. There we go. We've got all that working. And yeah, dig through the, I don't know if VS Code, like PyCharm has this really handy, like if I go over to the PyCharm preferences, and then I go over to, where is it hiding? The key map, I can literally like check the menus. I can go through the menus and I can see everything that's in there. I can see the hotkey that's assigned to everything. And then like all the editor actions, I can see the list of all the hotkeys that are assigned to each of those actions, and I can see actions that don't even have a hotkey. So like if there's an action that I want to be using that doesn't have a hotkey, I can go in and find it and add it. And like that's how I discovered like this little menu, this little run menu. It's Control Option R, which is so random, and that lets me like select which file I've recently used or run, and then select the one I want to run. And I can even go in and I can edit it. Because like I went in and edited the one I'm working on right now. So like I was messing with config. So I went in and edited how it runs, and I added the environment variable that I needed to test the thing I was working on. So we can remove that now. We don't need that anymore. And so like I can change how the file is going to be run and everything. And then when I use that, so like right now it's set to config. If I run it, you see like it ran config.py. If I go back into that menu and I select scratch 2, you can see scratch 2 ran. And then if I run it again, it continues to run scratch 2. So I can literally switch which file is going to be run and have it run that file every time I press Control R. So it's not switching between, it's not running the file I'm looking at, it's running the file I selected from that little menu. And I never would have found that menu if I hadn't looked through the list of all the hotkeys and shortcuts that PyCharm offers. And I don't know if VS Code has a similar ability to browse all the available shortcuts. If it doesn't, they should add it. For sure. Alright. We got that working. Makes me want to edit this thing, but I don't know. I'm gonna leave Alembic alone for now. It doesn't even, like, what projects look good on your resume doesn't even necessarily depend on the job you're looking for. If you have projects, even if they're not totally complete, they don't have to be 100% complete. If they run and you have code, like, what's important is having code and having code that will run and having documentation on that code which explains how to use it and how to run it and how to get it working on your on a machine. If you can articulate how to use your code and you have code that mostly works and you have code that is well written, that's what they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for the exact stack they're using. They're not looking for you to have the exact frameworks they're using. They're not even necessarily looking for you to have the exact programming language that they're using. They just want to see, can you sit down and write code that works? And can you talk about that code and how to use that code in a coherent manner? So what you want to do is you don't necessarily want to look for any specific project. You just want to make projects that are fun to you and make sure the code is well formatted, that it is appropriately documented, and that you have like a README in there that explains the project, explains the code, explains how to install the code, how to run the code, and like explains what the code does and shows how to use it. That's what you are looking for in your repo. Even having stuff like on like PyPy, that's great. Like, and so that you can link to it from your README. Like, you want to have all that information in your README. Is it on PyPy if it's a Python package? Does it have a documentation site? Put that in your README. All this stuff should go in your README. So when someone loads the repo, they see it's there, and it needs to be written coherently. It needs to be written well. Like, if you're not super confident about your writing skills, jump on Grammarly, run it through there, get it to be grammatically correct as best you can. So yeah, that's my advice. Like, if you, whatever projects seem interesting to you, do them. Those are going to be the projects you're going to do the best on, and that's going to be the projects that are going to look the best when they review the code. Is if you do something you don't like and you don't care about, your code isn't going to be as good as the code you would have written for a project that you do like and something that you're excited about. So it's more important to make projects about something you are excited about and interested in, than to just get the perfect project on there. You're probably not going to find the perfect project. Everybody's going to have tried. Like, most of the people submitting their resume are going to be submitting projects that they think are the ideal fit for the job. And they may not necessarily be well done. So, yeah. I mean, most, like, what I've heard is that for the most part, job postings are the wish list for the position. That is the list of, just noticed this is glaring on my camera. Oh well, guess I'll have to fix that next week. But yeah, so basically it's the wish list for the job position. And they're going to list that they want you to be a college graduate. They're going to list all of the frameworks that they want you to know. They're going to list all of that stuff, but that shouldn't dissuade you from applying, especially if you have a good portfolio. Like if you have a solid portfolio of well-written code, you're going to be better off than about 80% of people, because 80% of people don't have well-written code. They don't have a well thought out profile or portfolio. Like, you want to be showing that you can write code and that you can do it well. That's the number one thing you got to be doing. I know we had someone on the Discord a few weeks ago who had a master's in like software engineering or something and couldn't get a job. And when I asked him, like, what's your GitHub look like? What projects do you have out there? What do you have? They said nothing. They have nothing. They don't have a blog. They don't have a website. They don't have anything. Their GitHub repos are not there. There's none there. Their GitHub profile was empty. There was nothing on it. Literally in the time I talked to them, they uploaded one project that wasn't finished, that didn't work. And it's like, there's the reason why you have a master's degree and can't get any jobs. They said they had applied to over 300 places, and it's strictly because they'd had nothing. They had nothing to show for all of that effort that they went through to get that degree. And so you don't need to have that degree. You just need to show that you can do the job. That's what they're hiring. They're hiring someone who can do the job. Having the degree definitely helps to get the job, because a degree is a signal that you are someone who is competent. It is a signal that you are someone who can sit down and come out the end of a difficult process and get stuff done and figure out how to get stuff done. It's at least a signal that you got C's in your classes and that you understand at least something. You didn't fail through everything. You're not lying about something. You know something about the field. But it's not everything. You can have that master's degree and still not be able to get a job, because that signal doesn't guarantee anything. It just says this person probably is good at least at an academic level. And that's something I think a lot of people misunderstand about degree programs in computer science and software engineering, is that they think like, oh, this is going to prepare me to just go out into the world and write code. And I'm going to be able to just walk out the door with my degree on graduation day and immediately get a job and be like a world-class 10x developer. And the reality of the matter is, it's not. It's going to give you a baseline of understanding, and that's all it's going to give you. You're not going to be some rock star programmer because you have a degree. You're just going to have a broad understanding. You're going to have a surveyed knowledge of the field. You're going to know what testing is. You're going to know what Scrum is. You're going to know what Agile is. You're going to know what a database is. You're going to know what a schema is. You're going to understand what a finite automata is. You're going to understand all these terms. You're going to have a basic idea of what they are. But you're not going to have expertise in anything, because you just spent 4 years going through it's like 20 credit hours per semester at most colleges. Like, it's like 15 to 20 credit hours. So you're looking at like 30 credit hours a year, 120. You're going to have like 120 credit hours. And each class is going to be something like, so you're going to have like 40 classes under your belt, and it's going to be a liberal arts degree. So you're going to have all these other classes. You're going to have math, you're going to have English, you're going to have, maybe you might take speech, you might take a PE class. Like, you have all these other classes. So when all is said and done, you've taken like 25 like computer science classes that are directly computer science related. And none of them have drilled deep into anything. You spent 3 months in each of these 25 classes, 1 hour, like 3 days a week. So like you've got 3 hours a week with it for 3 months. That's not a lot of time. That's like 36 hours in the class. Like, it's not a lot of time. So you're not actually getting that deep in anything. You're just getting that survey information. You're memorizing a lot of terms, and that serves you. It does help you. Like, when you go out into the world and you get a job and you know the terms, that like gets you running. Like, you can start out running. Like, because you don't have to learn the lingo. You already have the lingo down. You already know when someone says that you need to create a database, that you need to worry about like securing that database, like when you have to make sure that like you have indexes on your set up correctly, like you understand all this stuff, and so your Google foo is can be able to use those terms a lot more easily than someone who doesn't have the terms and just goes out there and just is like banging their head into Google trying to find the thing they need. So it gives you a baseline of information that you can use to be more effective when you're getting started out. Nothing you learn in a computer science degree, especially like an undergraduate degree, nothing you learn there is something you can't learn outside of that degree. I would bet you a motivated person could get up to the level of an undergraduate degree in under 2 years, like quite honestly. Because like I said, if you're spending 3 months per semester in a class, and the class is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class, that's just 3 hours a week. 3 months is only about 12 weeks. So you're only spending about 36 hours in the class. That's not a lot of time. 36 hours, that's not even a full work week. You could literally cover the entire course, like what the course covers in a book, in under a week, and not even have done it 8 hours a day, 5 days of the week. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. College is literally a crash course. Everything is a crash course. It's 4 years of taking crash courses on different topics. You're not getting sent out. Like, I'm pretty sure I've seen YouTube playlists for learning stuff that are like 12, 14, 18 hours. So like that's like a half a semester already right there of material that you can just get from like a YouTube video. Absolutely, like a playlist of YouTube videos. So I know I've streamed over 24 hours in the last month and a half talking about code. And I've talked about a lot of things that like I learned about in college. I've talked about a lot of things I've learned just on the job. It sounds easy. It's not as easy. It's not really that easy. It's quite difficult. It's a lot of effort, and you have to be very motivated to go through college, and you have to be very motivated to get up to that level, to be able to get up to the level where you can get a job without going to college. Like, it takes a lot of motivation either way you go. It's just a matter of what fits your needs better, what fits your personality better, what fits what you want to do better. If you're a really motivated person and you really like self-motivating to learn, and you just want to hit the ground running, especially if you can afford to take like a year to like just spend learning after your high school graduation, like I really think you could, like anybody who's like that could land a really good job well before anybody who went to college for a computer science degree gets into a really good job, because they have to spend 4 years getting through that degree program, and maybe a third of their classes aren't even related to the degree. And like that's not to knock a liberal arts degree. Like, learning all that other stuff is great. Like, it really expands your mind. It really helps you to understand how the world works. It gives you a way to... It helps you to think in a different way, in a way that is a bit more intelligent, a bit smarter, in my opinion. But again, it's nothing you couldn't learn on your own. For sure. Like, it's just a way to say, all right, here is the path to doing this. Like, this is the path that we have found works for the most people. And like, that's important to remember too. A college degree is a path designed for the average person, or a subset that is towards the top of that bell curve that is close to average. That bell curve of people where the people at the top of the bell curve are average. Like, a college degree is targeting the people towards the top of the bell curve. The people right in the middle. And not everybody fits that. You have people on the low end, you have people on the high end that don't necessarily fit into what a degree program is for. And so yeah, it's all about like, who are you? What do you enjoy? How do you learn? How motivated are you? Some people don't have the motivation to sit down and teach themselves how to code. Some people don't have that motivation. And for them, going to college makes a lot of sense. It gives them a chance to learn about themselves, to explore, to learn things, and it gives them that set path that they can sit down and follow. And like, so in my opinion, as someone who has a college degree, who has a Bachelor of Business in Computer Science and Software Engineering, I would say college isn't for everyone. It was definitely for me. It's something that I am very happy I did. It really helped me develop as a human being, make me who I am today. And like, I definitely needed it, but I can definitely say for a fact, not everyone needs it. Some people can get by perfectly fine without it. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of people who don't even necessarily have the motivation once they have the degree. And they really need to be like carried by other people. They need someone to give them direction and need to give them something to motivate them. They're not self-motivated. They're not good at like getting themselves to do things and figure things out and understand things. And that's just people. Like, there's a place for everyone. Like, everyone has their ability, their strengths and their weaknesses. All strengths and weaknesses are needed and necessary and useful in some way. It's just a matter of finding where you slot in, and understanding who you are as a person, and understanding how you learn and how you function and how you best function and how you best learn. And what you want from life. Like, do you want to spend the first 4 years of your adult life in college hanging out with friends, getting to learn and getting to meet people, and just getting to focus on learning and focus on enjoying the first 4 years of your adult life? Some people don't necessarily need that. Some people really do enjoy just like getting down into work and getting down and learning, and like they can slot in a social life around that, and like that is perfectly fine for them. And other people want that experience of like having 4 years where they don't necessarily have to worry about like having a job or figuring out where they're going to live. Like, they're just going to live in the dorm, or they're going to live in the apartment that their parents helped them find for college. Like, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. I think either way makes sense. And it's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out who you are as a person and figuring out what path makes sense for you. Even if the job application, the job listings say they want a college graduate, they want a college degree. Like I said, it's a wish list. That's what they're looking for. That's not necessarily what they're going to, the only thing they're going to accept. Like, a lot of positions, if they see that you're someone who's a self-starter, someone who's motivated to learn, they may hire you even if you've never touched the programming language in the stack that they're using, because they figure that they can give you the opportunity to learn, and you will hit the ground running, learn the thing they need you to learn, and be good at it, and write code that's good, write documentation that's good, and like explain things good. Like, and that is more important than finding someone who is a rock star at Java Spring or whatever, or like someone who claims to be, or someone who has dabbled with it. Or like, they want people who will be able to do the job the best they can. And a lot of jobs don't need it right away. Don't need you to be at 100% immediately. So yeah, don't worry about what you see in the job postings. Work on your portfolio. Like, GitHub is your friend. LinkedIn, I guess, is your friend. I am terrible at updating my LinkedIn, so do with that what you will. I heard a lot of people say you should update your LinkedIn, you should network. You should definitely network. You should definitely get to know people. You should definitely talk to people. I try to do it through Twitter. Like, I talk to people on there. And I've had some conversations. Like, there's only something like 25, 30 million software developers in the world. And out of all of those, only a handful are making the packages and languages and the tools we use every day as software developers. So if you jump on Twitter, you're going to end up talking with the cream of the crop, the people at the top of their game, at the software development game, and they have a wealth of knowledge. They're generally super duper friendly, and they love to talk to people. Like, they are people who enjoy talking to people, who enjoy hearing what you have to say. Like, I know I've talked on Twitter with Will McGugan. I've talked on Twitter with a few other different people. So yeah. Networking is less about sliding into their DMs and asking for a job, and more about just being someone that they like, getting to know them, being knowing people. And then if you ever needed a job, you'd be like, hey, I'm looking for a job, and you're going to be on their radar, and they'll be able to help you get a job. Or if you really need a job and you know them, even as an acquaintance, and you know they can help you on that path to getting that job in some way, now they know your name, and you will be able to jump into their DMs and be like, hey, how's it going? Like, I saw you work at such and such company, and I would love to get a job at that company. And because now you've networked, because like anybody can look up who works at Microsoft on LinkedIn and then just start dropping into their DMs. Networking is about getting to know people, making acquaintances, getting your name out there, and talking to people, getting to know people. And then when you need that network to get a job, to land a job, to get into a specific job, you have people who know you, at least at a surface level, at a cursory level, and will recognize your name when you drop into their DMs. And then they already have a positive feeling towards you. And that's basically what the idea of networking is. Just getting your name out there and getting people to have a positive feeling about you, maybe even getting your name on their brain. Like, you make something cool, and now your name is on their brain, and they see a job opening somewhere, and like, hey, I saw this job opening that kind of reminded me of the project I saw you had worked on. Maybe you want that job. Or we have a job opening at my place. Like, I saw you worked on a thing very similar to that. I was wondering if you might want to apply to it. Like, that's what networking is for. It's all about meeting people, getting to know people, and then getting the job, getting into the job you want is a secondary thing when it comes to networking. If you go into networking with the idea, I'm going to use these people to get myself a job, they're probably going to catch on to that, and they're probably not going to like it too much. So yeah. I know, like, I don't even necessarily talk like a lot of like the big software development people that like I follow in the Python, mostly in the Python community that I follow. They don't even necessarily always just talk about code. Like, they have a lot of personal stuff. So like sometimes I'll just make a comment on like one of their tweets about something that's personal that they talked about on their Twitter, because for the most part, like, I assume if you're posting it on Twitter, you mean for it to be public, and you're okay with people that follow you talking with you about it. And so like I've commented on stuff like that. So it's not even necessarily that I'm only talking about code on Twitter with people. I'm just talking to people, getting a positive feeling out there. I know, like, there's some maths plus maths PP on Twitter. He does like different things on there, and like I did like he had a little challenge on there, and I did the algorithm in a video on Twitter in response to his challenge. And then like he DM'd me, and we talked in DMs, and like he put my name on his website, and like he recognized me from all the other times I've talked in the Twitter threads on his tweets. So yeah, it's just about getting people to know you, getting to know other people, and like just generally having a fun time, enjoying each other's company. Like, you're all people who are interested in the same stuff. So you're probably going to get along pretty well. There's also like local meetups often, like depending on where you're at. I'm kind of out in the middle of the woods. There's not a whole lot of local meetups nearby me. Maybe if I was interested in learning how to code like a squirrel, that might work, but there's not really much around me, so I don't get to go to meetups very often. Maybe in the future I'll get closer to the city and be able to go to meetups more often. But yeah, if you're in the city and you want, like, you can probably find meetups about stuff that you are interested in. And that's a great way to meet local people who are interested in the same stuff. I know when I was working for doing web development, WordPress web development, in my area, the guy who owned the small web dev shop that I was working for, he was pretty good at networking, and like he knew a lot of people in the area, and we got a lot of work, not because we advertised or anything. We got a lot of work because people knew him and knew what he did. And then like he started putting out that like I was able to do interesting stuff. And so we started getting some really complicated problems that like average, like other devs, because like a lot of the people in the WordPress dev area aren't like expert devs. They're people who learned how to write HTML, learned a little bit of JavaScript, learned some CSS, and started writing WordPress plugins or WordPress themes. And like, so they had like a basic understanding of coding. And so like he put it out there that like I understood like at a deeper level a lot of stuff. So we started getting like some harder problems that were like a lot harder to solve that I could solve for them. And so like that networking, even with like the people that were like rival businesses to us, that he had this networking he had done, opened up opportunities for us to get work on projects, subcontracting work on projects that they had, because they weren't necessarily sure how to do it. And their coding strengths were like adjusting themes, making things SEO friendly. Like their expertise wasn't in diving deep into the code and figuring out why their database was taking 5 minutes to return. And that was something I brought to the table and I was able to use. And through his networking, we was able to get work for us. Yeah, so networking has a lot of uses. And like primarily, you want to just use it as making friends, and getting to know people and having interesting conversations. And then when you do need a job, you have that network of people who know you and who hopefully have a positive feeling about you. And when you drop into their DMs, or when you put out onto Twitter that you're looking for a job, or onto LinkedIn that you're looking for a job, now you have people who hopefully like you, who are seeing you and are going to be able to point you in the right direction, might be able to drop an offer, a helpful offer into your lap, might be able to get you a good word in at a company that you want to get into. Like, and that's what networking is all about. It's just meeting people and getting them to like you. All right. Why do I have a mention on here? Oh, just a bump. Alrighty. But yeah. So that's we're at nearly 2 hours. Any other questions you got? I think you're the only person viewing right now. It says that I have one concurrent viewer, so I think you're the one person here right now. Got any other questions before I call it a night? Yeah, no problem. Glad to help out. Glad to give answers. Why I want to make the Wednesday night streams just like I've got code up here. I wrote some code tonight, but I mostly talked, mostly answered questions, mostly talked to people like about what they're doing. And that's what I want Wednesday nights to be. It's hanging out, it's answering questions, it's having fun, and maybe writing some code. The Sunday stream is longer, and it's going to be that's where I'm doing mostly just code. And like if there's questions and they're quick, I'll probably answer them. But this is the night, and this is where I want to be doing mostly this kind of stuff, answering questions, helping people out on their coding journey. Yeah. And if anybody else sees this and is interested in joining us, we have a Discord community of right now just shy of 7,500 members. Even though it's 7,500 members, it seems like a lot of people. It still has a small community feel to it. We're not super busy. Like if you can jump into chat, your message isn't going to be lost in 30 seconds. Someone will see it, and you will get a response. We mostly answer help questions on a variety of things. We do PHP, we do JavaScript, Java, C, C#, C++, Python, my favorite. We have web dev stuff. We sometimes help out with, depending on the question, ethical hacking questions, emphasis on the ethical. But yeah, it's a great little community. Most questions get answered if they're asked well and that they're explained well and you provide the necessary details. So yeah, you should join us on the beginner.codes Discord server. I've got the link down in the description. But yeah, come check it out. Hang out. Let's have some fun. If you got any questions, you can find me there. I'm on Twitter. I'm here. It's all right. I'm gonna head out for the night. You all have a great week. It's been fun.